I'm now going to be speaking with Tobias Zielony. Welcome, Tobias. About his new book, The Fall, that you can see here. Just to introduce Tobias briefly, Tobias is a German photographer who is particularly known for his depiction of suburban youth and of many themes relating to the life of suburban youth around the world, whether that's migration, drug abuse, whether it's social change, sex work, and many other important themes that relate to youth. The Fall is a book that was produced for a mid-career retrospective at the Vogtwang Museum in Essen in Germany in 2021. And that, I guess, really, provides a huge overview of your work. There's a very large exhibition with not only photographs but also your films, slideshows, and installations. So, as you can see from the book is actually made up of 6 different volumes, and so. I'm interested just to begin our conversation to understand how you constructed these 6 volumes for the book of your work.
Okay, can you hear me? Yeah, thank you, Mark. Hello, everybody. The idea came actually from commissioning young writers, fictional and essay writers, in kind of relating to my work. And instead of doing the one big telephone book, that was kind of the first idea to go along with the retrospective. Spector, and especially Jan from Spector, brought up the idea of having 6 individual books for each of the 6 writers that are also, you can also buy them individually, which makes it a lot easier, it's cheaper, basically, to buy one than the whole box. But also the writers have a book for themselves. And the idea was that there's a new generation of writers in Germany that really develop new kind of styles and concepts of writing in fiction and also in kind of essay. We call it auto-fictional essay writing. And I was curious in that. So we were having a long kind of casting process. I was reading a lot of texts. And then we approached people, and then the next part was kind of deciding who is writing in relation to which works. But there was also a bit of randomness in it. Some people said, I want to write about this series or about this video. And then, we had to move it around, really. And my name is not, it's only mentioned twice in the book, so it's not really about my pictures. You could even read the text as a piece of fiction without knowing that it's written about in relation to my work.
Yeah, I have to say I was sent the PDF of the book a few weeks ago, and when I actually received the book itself, I was really surprised, as often is the case when you have something on a screen, this small object. So it's really interesting. It's a really unusual form, especially for something like a retrospective, which would tend to be much more of a kind of landmark publication. And the other aspect of it that's very interesting is that actually, in a sense, the books foreground the text over the images. The books begin with text, and it gives a really important place to that text. And is it right as well that these 6 writers were all born in the 1990s?
I think the oldest one is 33 now.
Right.
And that happens to be the age when Jesus died. And one text is about that age, so that's why I know, by Dora Koderholt, and we had a talk with her yesterday at Le Bal. And also in ancient times, when people were commissioning a painting to memorize them once they're dead, they choose the kind of perfect age of 33, and by accident all the writers are 33 or young. The youngest is 22, so it is her first publication, really. So and since my work is so often related to like youth culture and pop culture, it was also a way of, I'm older now, like looking what like the next generation is like can do with my work or not. Yeah.
Sure, and I think there's a sense with the texts as well that it's in a sense giving a kind of voice to the people that are in the photographs and or part of those generations. I guess the other aspect I wanted to ask you about is this self-representation. Even though these are your photographs of suburban youth around the world,
it's not about suburban youth. Sorry.
Okay.
So I'm like in my career I'm like confronted with the term periphery and suburbia.
Okay.
And it's actually not. I mean, most of the time I photograph in the city centers.
Okay.
I mean, it started a little bit like that when I was a student in the UK, but I don't think it's really helpful to understand my work.
The suburban aspect of it.
Yeah.
But this idea of self-representation, I mean, your work spans a kind of pre-social media period into the current era. And I'm really interested to know, obviously as the exercise of self-representation has become so much more a part of all of our lives, and particularly for youth, how that has kind of impacted your practice as a photographer.
Yeah, it's really, I started to study documentary photography, but I got really interested in kind of the imagination and fantasies of the people I photograph. How would they like to be seen, depicted, to stage themselves? I mean, we're talking here 20, 25 years ago when there was no social media. So a lot of them I noticed, or also me myself, had like ideas of images from music videos or computer games or Hollywood movies that then somehow ended up in the way people self-expressed them. And when you follow, maybe in the books, but also in the exhibition, when you go full circle until today, people are so professional in front and also behind the camera, I mean, mostly their cell phones, that really the idea, or like, let's say, the relationship between people and the image has totally changed. And over that period of maybe 20 years, 25 years, you can really see that change.
I mean, another aspect that I found striking looking through the book is that, these images are taken all around the world. And there is a kind of tension between the specificity of, individual cultures and this, I guess, a kind of global youth culture, you might say. Or, and I found in a way that the book tends to emphasize, those global aspects, those resonances that there are from one culture to another. Was that something that was deliberate, or did you want to kind of maintain that tension between the global and the locally specific, as it were?
The way I started really was that I was in Wales, and then I moved to Leipzig in Germany, eastern part of Germany. And I realized that in this kind of places that are like almost like looked over, or in this neighborhoods or maybe sometimes suburbia, that first of all, still people live their life. It's not because they don't appear in news or in magazines at the time. It's not like they're not. It doesn't mean they're not important. But then I realized that there is like connections between people, a lot of times through fashion, or maybe by looking through at the same, like at the time, music videos, rap, hip hop, kind of pop culture that kind of links people in, even if they don't really know about it. So, and at the time, it was really like a new observation, also for me, but also for the people I photographed. They're like, "Oh, you went to Los Angeles, you took those pictures, but why are you interested in us?" And I said, no, there is a kind of connection.
We only have a couple of minutes left, so I'd like to give opportunity to the audience to ask a question.
Hello, sorry, I didn't think at all that I would have to speak, but I discovered your work in Berlin in 2009 at the Moto Library with your book Trona, and I didn't know your work before, and I must say it was really surprised. There was a density there that was very, very interesting, and you mixed a kind of a sensuality in your pictures, an interest for young generation, and for colors. And I don't know how you manage the colors of the night so well, because I know you use a lot of different lights, and gives of your work something modernity, real modernity. I mean, inscribes it really in the present. But could you talk a bit about Trona, because it's you choose so a small town close to the Death Valley, if I remember well, because in fact I went there and I made pictures there after you, because I had your book that is really very strong, because it's a small cahier, I don't know how to say it, and in like around 12 pictures, I mean, something like this, you say it, and very precisely. And could you speak a bit about this work?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, thank you very much. Yeah, there's Trona somewhere here in the pictures, but I don't know where. Trona is different in a sense since it's photographed in daytime. So most of my work, as you might have seen, is done in nighttime using ambient light, a bit like being on a film set, bringing almost no lights myself, or very little lights, like a flashlight. But in Trona, in the desert, I used the kind of, let's say, emptiness around, also almost like a theater set. So instead of the darkness, the blackness of things around it, the kind of nothingness of the desert would kind of create a similar intimate and sometimes claustrophobic feeling. And yeah, we did the publication with Spector. I think you can still buy it, actually. It's a 4th edition. I went to Trona because some people told me to go there, but it's one of the most scary places I've been. I don't know how you experienced it, and I was too scared to stay there in the darkness. It's a town where people use and produce crystal meth, the drug crystal meth. But I went there long before there was Breaking Bad or a lot of knowledge outside the US about crystal meth. More questions?
Okay, that's actually all we have time for. But for those of you that it's obviously extremely difficult, if not impossible, to discuss a book as layered as this, and it's a mid-career retrospective in 15 minutes. But Tobias will be signing copies of The Fall this afternoon at 5 p.m. on the Spectre Books booth. So that's SE22, just over there. So you'll be able to get a signed copy of the book and to discuss the project more with him. So thank you very much for your time, Tobias.
Thanks, everybody.